All right, all right, all right. Happy Thursday. How the hell is everybody doing? Welcome to, welcome to day one. Day one. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is my ninth season. This is only my eighth day one because the first year I didn't start making videos till I think we were 4 games in, 5 games in, something like that. Saw a bunch of the interviews with the guys as they were showing up yesterday. I know there's already some footage of players being at camp today. The infamous Paul Maurice camp. Now, those of you who are new here, what you're watching is the Flying Fluffy Hockey Podcast, exclusively live for members Monday through Friday at noon. And then when the live show is over, I make it public so everybody can watch. But if you want to be able to join us live during the season, links are in the description box for members and Patreon supporters. Now, for you members, remember members, this is also for Patreon supporters. So you will not get a notification that there's a members exclusive video coming up, because if I make it members exclusive, then the Patreon people can't watch the video. So I make it unlisted, and what I do every day is I post a link, a members only link to this video. So if you're wondering why you have not been notified of a members exclusive live, that's why. If you want to watch the show live, you just got to go to the community tab and you'll have your member section, and the link is there. Every day about 11 o'clock, I post that, and the same thing for Patreon people. I just post the link every day to Patreon. Now, what did I learn from all the interviews? Sam Reinhart, he's got his hair, his hair is looking good. So we're strong there. And he talked a little bit about the contract process. Sam is not one of the most, you're not going to get a lot of blood from that stone. You know what I mean? He doesn't really give you any sound bites. I found interesting the juxtaposition between the difference of Kachuk and Barkov in their interviews. And it's not a complaint. It's just interesting. You obviously can see how they handle themselves and the way that they play and everything. Two very different guys. And for Chucky, it was all business in terms of, how are you remembering the cup, and how much of an effect does that have on this season and everything like that. And basically he's like, that was then, this is now, we're honed in, we're focused in, one day at a time, one practice at a time, all of the cliches, but that's his attitude. And then Barkov was just all smiles. He literally said it's something he probably will think about every day is winning the cup. So I found it interesting that Chucky was, we're going to put that behind us and we're just going to focus in on every day. And Barkov was like, yeah, it was great. It was all smiles and just talking about how that's not something that he'll ever forget, like even on a day-to-day basis. So I found that interesting. Paul Maurice did his Paul Maurice thing, right? I forget the joke, but he did try to crack a joke early on. But the bottom line is, the guys, they look and they sound good. We certainly don't have, there's some other teams out there, including like Boston, who were playing in our first game. There's some other teams out there with injury issues and contract issues and question marks and everything like that. And I don't see it with this team. I think everybody looks and sounds and it appears as though they feel rocking and rolling and ready to go, right? And I think whether or not we win the cup or not, it's going to depend upon Game 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Does the puck go off the post and in, or does the puck go off the post and out? And whose net is it going in? And that'll determine whether or not we go to the Stanley Cup Final. Now, if that happens, somebody remind me that I said that. Somebody remind me if we win the Eastern Conference again in Game 6 of overtime and the puck goes off the post and in and we win. Somebody remind me of this moment. I'm sure I'll remember, right? Although I didn't, I didn't remember Verhaeghe in overtime, right? That's why I was screaming Verhaeghe in overtime, because I had forgotten that at the beginning of the series I said Game 7 Verhaeghe in overtime, and when we got to overtime, it just never. I was just watching the game, so there's that. And one other thing I haven't touched upon, obviously, the Panthers, they re-up their lease. So there's no concern, there's no questions there. Not that I really ever had any really big worries about the team moving. Even when they used to talk about the team moving, I just it never felt right, especially once we have these owners. Once we had Vinny and Doug, you kind of knew, unless they were just losing, bloodily large amounts of money, that they were going to stick it out and see it through. And here we are, right? We have an opportunity. I think they talked about it yesterday in the press conference. Only 2 teams in the South Florida market, everyone back to back, was the Dolphins back when I was 1 year old. And then, of course, the Heat did it. Let's see. Who's that? Who's going to remind me? Who is that? Hey, Jameson, how you doing, bud? So everything is set. Everything looks, and this is where it gets a little bit, you don't want to bring on the bad juju, but when you look at it on paper, when you look at the whole situation on paper, right? Like, okay, can this get better? Can this team get better? And that's what Maurice talked about a little bit, was that's basically the goal every day, is to just continue to get better. I told you they had identified some things that, in the playoffs that they want to improve upon. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday, with the power play. I know today and the next few days, I don't think you're going to have much in the way of seeing, lines and everything like that, but you might, I don't remember exactly what the protocol is. I know that they do a lot of skating and guys are pretty much exhausted. And then we got 2 games on Sunday. It's the split squad against Nashville that we do every year. So, who knows, how many of our main guys are going to play in that game. Bubba Ruski, he talked a little bit, and you're not going to get much out of Bob. He looks locked in already. 100%. It didn't matter what they asked him. They could ask him about what it was like to win the cup. They could ask him what he had for breakfast. They could ask him, how much money is in his bank account. They could ask him if he liked his 5th grade teacher. And his answer is, I am just grateful to be here and enjoy the moment. I mean, and that's okay. That's fine. But it's just like, boom, he's locked away in his box. So, that's a good thing. I've talked about it before, where I would love to see him stay an extra couple of years at a lower price, obviously, right? But I wouldn't mind seeing him stay an extra couple of years. There's this year and next year. So, whether we win or not this year, you assume he's coming back next year, right? So let's say we win this year, we come back the next year, and he's trying to be the first goalie in who knows how long to win 3 cups in a row. I guess that would have happened back. We talked about yesterday with the Islanders. And if we don't win it this year, and he comes back the following year, last year, the contract, if we win it again, would he be like, okay, that's it, I'm out, I'm done, right? Would that be the walking off into the sunset moment? So there's that. I'm very, very, like I've said, I'm very, very interested to see how Spencer Knight looks. That to me, all of the pieces that we have, but the backup goaltending is definitely going to be key. I'm not so sure. I know we got Drieger. I know he's going to start the AHL level. I trust Bill Zito. That's all I can say about Drieger is I trust Bill Zito because unless who was it? Jonas Johansson, was that his name? Jonas Johansson. Johansson was the only goalie that we've brought in recent memory that we were like, this guy is not good. Why do we, everybody else that we've brought in, that Zito has brought in year after year after year in terms of backup goaltending has been top notch. Now, Drieger was really good with us. He parlayed that into a contract with Seattle. Hasn't worked out for him. He's had the injuries, hasn't played a whole lot. And I was kind of surprised that was the route that we went. But remember, he's the third goalie and Spencer Knight's the backup. So to me, the fact that we didn't go after a higher quality guy, or at least the guy that's had recent success last season, to me, that kind of says that they have all the confidence in the world that Spencer Knight is going to be A-OK, 100% ready to go, and that we shouldn't have too much, concern there. Now, that was one thing last year. Everything is different, right? Every year is different. Did Bob did he miss any time at all last year with any kind of an injury or illness? I know the year before with Lyon, obviously that was part of the reason why Lyon had gotten in, and then things went the way that they went at the beginning of the playoffs. I don't remember Bob missing any games last year of, he's got a little tweak or he's sick or anything like that. I don't think he missed any time. And what I was getting to was, relatively, we were healthy, right? We had Ekblad and Montour gone at the start of the season. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we lost anybody, at least in the top 9. I know like Lockwood had gotten the concussion, right? I think there was another, was it? No, that was at the AHL level. So the point is that last year, there was no, Barkov bumped his knee and he's out for a month, or, Verhaeghe pulled a groin and he's going to be out for a month. I don't think we had any of that at all. Bennett was dinged a little bit, right? But I think, again, that was closer to the beginning of the season and then at the beginning of the playoffs, if memory serves me correct. So for the most part, right, we made it through the whole Stanley Cup final, the whole playoffs. The same 6 defensemen, right? Nobody, nobody got hurt. Everybody was healthy. And that's unusual, right? That is very, very unusual. I'm not saying we got lucky, but obviously there's some luck involved. There's obviously skill and conditioning, and that's what the guys are doing right now, is continuing to be the best conditioned team in the league, in my opinion. So when you look at what had happened in the previous years and what happened, could happen this year, the odds are, as much health as we had last year, eventually somebody's going to get hurt. You don't want anybody to be out for an entire length of a season. However, what may have also helped us last year, we talked about this a little bit, was just the level of depth, right? Because sometimes a guy twists a knee and, we need you out there, so you go out there and play, and maybe now that's going to linger for a while. Where this past season, if somebody needed to miss a game, right, you're out, right? I think Barkov for a couple of games. I know he usually misses a little bit of time here, 2 or 3 games here or there. But, when you've got guys like Lundell and Luosterainen to fill in the middle, if Barkov's going to be out, it's not like our our forward situation on the wings, right? If Reinhardt's missing, you pop, maybe you put Rodriguez out there or something like that. And we've just got a number of guys that can fill so many different roles that if somebody has tweaked something, they can just sit for a night, rest, recuperate, and then they heal appropriately rather than it being something that can linger the entire season or for a specific length of time, like with Bennett's groin. I don't think that was this year. Was that this year or was that last year? Might have been both years. He's had groin issues before, right? But it all runs together. I don't remember if it was the beginning of, maybe it was the beginning of the Tampa series. I don't know. Somebody can remind me. So, a couple of things that went wrong, right last year were Stolarz being exceptional at backup goaltending and the health, right? The health of these guys was just absurdly lucky to go through an entire playoff run, as physical as those games are. I mean, the Boston series, right? I mean, that was blood sport out there. And we came out of that healthy enough to when we got up against the Rangers, that was our full lineup out there. And now I don't know if you remember after we lost to Vegas, like Maurice stepped up to the podium and he was like, okay, so everybody on the team's got a broken leg and a broken ribs and a broken arm. Like he just like it. He wasn't even that was the first thing he said, right? It wasn't like congratulations, Vegas. It was like everybody on the team is dead. And he just gave us this massive injury report. And I wonder if either nobody was injured at the end of the series with Edmonton, or he just didn't bring it up because we won. You see what I'm saying? The difference in how we had to handle the offseason. Now, last year was a little bit easier. Even though we had guys injured, last year's was easier because we knew Ekblad and Montour were going to come back, and we at least knew Montour was likely to stay healthy after he came back. See, it's day one. I'm already giving Ekblad grief, right? But the point is that the guys that we got to replace them, we needed them to be, replacement. But we kind of knew that, okay, when Ekblad and Montour come back, we kind of thought, well, if Mikkola and OEL aren't really working out, that's okay because Ekblad and Montour are coming back. So this is a little bit different because the guys, Montour and OEL, they ain't coming back. Now, Nate Schmidt gave an interview yesterday, obviously. He's going to fit in. We don't know what the pairings are going to be. We all assume it's still going to be Ekblad and Forsling, but you never know. They could be showing it on Twitter right now where it's Forsling and Mikkola, Forsling and Kulikov, probably not. Forsling and Balinskis. I mean, eventually it's going to be Forsling and somebody else, right? Eventually, unless we re-sign Ekblad, but even at that point, how many years at the number one spot does he have or on the top line, right? So the pairings, that's going to be, it'll probably be, we'll try a bunch of different pairs during the preseason. But I have confidence in all of the guys that we have out there. I mean, Kulikov saved the goal and started the rush in the Game 7 game-winning goal. So we're cool. You know what I mean? It's like if Kulikov has to play in the second pair, I'm not worried about it. If he has to play in the first pair, I mean, he can't be slower than Ekblad. See, I'm already giving Ekblad grief. But he can't be, right? I mean, Kulikov can't be slower than Ekblad. They got to at least be of equal speed. So, Balinskis showed well. I know Kiersted is back in camp. Lucas Carlson, for those of you who were of the mindset that we, kind of should have given him a chance. I know last year he got hurt, and I know we did not offer him a contract. I didn't hear where he signed, but I don't think he's with the team anymore for whatever reason. I mean, he's not the biggest guy, but he showed offensive ability in the AHL, and just for whatever reason, We just at no point wanted to bring him back up. And, and then Nico Mikkola, right? So I feel good about the defense. I'm not going to sweat what the pairs are going to be. The obvious assumption, like I said, is Forsling, Ekblad, and then what? Schmidt, Mikkola, Kulikov, Mikkola, Belinsky. I mean, we saw it last year where you just have confidence in all of the guys, right? Now Montour, losing Montour in the OEL, where that hurts us is, a little bit of offense, right? Now we saw Mikkola have a little bit in that, in inside of him, right? As he got more comfortable playing and as the season, especially the playoffs, progressed, he's not afraid to jump up on the play. We'll see what Schmidt can bring. Okay, big dude, by the way. I don't know if you watched the interview, but he does not look like he has skipped any meals. And I don't mean that as the net. I'm not. That's not to disparage. I'm sure it's all muscle under that shirt. But you see Kachuk come in, and he's like, it's all, he's all nice and tight, and he's got the dimples and the cuts in his face. You can tell he's ripped. And then Schmidt comes out there, and he's just kind of he's a big dude. He's a big dude, at least girth wise. So in terms of the pairs, we're good. We're either way, we're good. The only real question on this roster is, in terms of the top 9, is who's taking that spot next to Lundell and Luosterainen. Now, I haven't read anything. I haven't seen anything. I don't know what's going out there. My assumption is that's Samoskevic's spot to lose, right? I know it's not going to just be handed to him, but when you look at the quality of players that we acquired to be on the fourth line, they're fourth liners. You know what I mean? They're fourth line players. If Samoskevich cannot lock down that spot next to Lundell and Luosterainen, that's going to be a problem in terms of Samoskevich's career / value. You know what I mean? We kind of thought he looked ready last year, but the roster being what it was, it didn't happen. But considering all things considered, considering we got the cup and his age and everything else, I don't see any reason. I see no reason at all to not just be like, here you go, kid. Third line, right side. There you go. Let it, and see how it goes, right? And if you get into a situation before the trade deadline where maybe it's not working out, maybe Maurice thinks we need a little bit more, veteran experience or whatever in that spot and then you just get somebody at the trade deadline. We can do that, So, and then in the fourth line, I don't know. I don't mean that like I'm not trying to disparage the fourth line. There's going to be a lot of competition for that fourth line, which is good, which is really, really good. But as far as I'm concerned, you can take a half dozen guys' names and put them in the Yahtzee cup and shake it up and roll it and be like, that looks like a good fourth line. And then you take the other remaining names and you roll it, be like, well, that would be okay too. I think we're going to be just fine. And the same thing applies like we did last year, even though we had Lorentz and Lomberg and Cousins, still went out there and got Okposo. And the only thing I was disappointed about with Okposo is that every game, every stream, every playoff game, I kept saying he's going to get an important goal. He's going to get an important goal. Son of a bitch never got a goal. Never got a goal. He made some plays, right? God, he was so slow. He was somehow, I think he got better as the playoffs went on. It's almost as though, like I remember when we first got him and he played like right away after we got him, because I think we had injury issues. He looked like slow. Okay. like Fluffy as a puppy versus Fluffy in his last 6 months. Like, you're like, okay, this dude, compared to everybody else, is really slow. And it's almost like, the more he played, his legs kind of got going again and everything like that. And it might also just been he was able to put himself in a better position because he understood, the system a little bit better and what was expected of him. But I mean, regardless, I can't think of, I'm sure there might have been one time, but I can't think of any time where we were like, damn it, Okposo, why did you do that? Or something like that. It pretty much worked out. So, when you talk about the fourth line, again, if you get to the trade deadline and you need to make a move or something like that, I fully trust Zito. But we've got so many guys. We've got so many guys there. And, I know there's going to be a little bit of a situation where some guys, you don't want to send them back down because they might get picked up. I think that's Balinskis, right? I think it's Balinskis that if we send them down, we have to put them on waivers. I believe that's who. So there's going to be a little bit of that, but it's nothing like the couple of years ago where we were so up against the cap that we literally had to play a game short a player a couple of times. Hey, good morning, Trey. You're on Kyle time again. Kyle actually got up at 10 o'clock this morning because we're going to the gym. He was actually up at 9:30. He was actually up earlier because we're going. What did I say? So we're going to the gym. We're going to the auction. I don't even know what I'm doing. So this show here will be a little bit short because I got a chicken in the oven and I got to finish cooking it because I went to the gym this morning and I was just going to buy us rotisserie chickens because we take the rotisserie chicken to the auction with us. So we got dinner because we're there for like 7 hours. But I was there too early. There was no chickens made. So I had to buy chickens and I got them in the oven now. So what's Trey got? He says, well, you're an hour behind, so you only woke up 90 minutes after. Right. Other than that, just we're the Cup champs. This first day of training camp when we're the Cup champs. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. Unless I'm sitting here next year and I'm saying this is the first day of camp after we've two-peated and we're trying to be the first team in, 50 years to win 3 in a row? That was the Islanders. I forget which 70s years it was, but that was the last team to win 3 in a row. Why can't we talk about it? There's going to be somebody that says, don't jump ahead. It's like, yeah, I know. That's what I do. That's never going to change, right? That's never going to change. And other than that, the only thing that we'll be looking at during the season are the contracts. Like I've been saying, Verhaeghe, Bennett, Ekblad, I would just assume that, well, let's put it this way. If Zito's plan is to not keep Ekblad, Bennett and Verhaeghe are going to get paid. They're going to get paid anyway, right? But what I was going to say was that we'll just give everybody Sam Reinhart's contract, but that's not exactly it. I don't think we have enough money to pay Verhaeghe 8, Bennett 8, and Ekblad 8. I haven't looked, but I'm fairly certain we don't have enough money to do that. Because the timing of the whole thing with Ekblad and Bob's contract, right? Because we got to re-sign Ekblad before Bob's contract is up. So that's going to be a little bit of a tight thing there. But if Zito makes the decision that he's going to let Ekblad walk, or he's going to pay, offer Ekblad, if you want to stay, you're going to get what, 5 times 5, right? That would be a reasonable give and take for Ekblad. Now, unless he comes back this year and he looks great again and all of that. But if he continues to be the player he is, yes, he's on the top pair of the Stanley Cup champs. Can't take that away from him. Cannot take away from him the effort level that he puts out there and the work that he's putting into himself to come back from the injuries and be a solid, viable defenseman again. Would another team look at him and be like, I believe, and give him, $8-9 million a year? Probably not. Probably not, but you never know. There's no guarantee. It might be a team like, Columbus, right? Right? Some crap team might be like, hey, come on, Ekblad, we need a name to fill some seats. He's not going to go do that. He's not going to go do that. So it's just going to be a question of it's a unique situation, right? It's not just about what his value is. It's about what his value is to the team, but what his value could be to the team if he took less than he could get elsewhere could mean that he could finish his career here while we also stay in the Stanley Cup window. So there's that. Now, there's some good news here. There's a little bit of good news here, okay? Because last year, Sam Reinhart was in a contract year. What'd Sam Reinhart do? Okay. Now, Verhaeghe and Bennett are in contract years. And Ekblad too, right? But I don't want Ekblad doing, I don't know. Just, I wish we would have, now that I'm talking about it, I wish we would have just, anybody else in the team, I don't mind giving extra effort. Ekblad just needs to play with it himself. I do not want Ekblad thinking, this is my contract year, I got to prove I'm an offensive defenseman still. No. I will buy the shot collar myself. We've had this discussion plenty. No, you just stay. Be a good boy. Get back. But for Verhaeghe and Bennett, now if they would like to blow up during their contract season, I'm all for that. Especially Bennett, because if Verhaeghe blows up, he already gets 40 a year. If he blows up, he's likely to get 60. And then how are we going to be like, $8 million for 60? And that might not work too well. That might not be so good. If Bennett can stay healthy, he did get a few more goals than he normally did last year, right? It'll be interesting to see, because that's two guys in the same line. No. Well, it depends. It depends on how they're going to slot and how they're going to, slot everything. You assume, right? You assume Barkov and Verhaeghe, but they move things around a lot, so you just don't know. But if they are on the line, well, either way, if either it's two guys on the same line in a contract year, or a guy in a contract year on your top line and a guy in a contract year on the second line, that could be beneficial. That can definitely be beneficial to us. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, Reinhart, it's one thing I found interesting. With Reinhart, even before, there was a lot more talk about, Reinhart's contract and everything like that, even at the beginning of the season. I have not heard a whole lot of being asked or even spoken about. And it's obviously camp just started today, but I haven't really heard the same things out of Verhaeghe or Bennett like we've heard like out of Reinhart and Ekblad about very, very vocal about wanting to stay and all of that. If you're Carter Verhaeghe, especially, he's been making what? I think it's 4.2, 4.16, or 4. He's been making 4 point something. And he's been scoring 30, 40 goals now for a hot minute, right? Now, like I said with Sam Reinhart, I kind of felt like his number would be a little bit more palatable because he'd already been making $6.5 million for multiple years. So he was not so much in a situation where, he had to get 10 now, because he's already been getting 6.5. So 8.5 now I can live with. But Verhaeghe's been getting 4.25 or whatever it is. So he may be in a situation where it's like, it may be a bigger, more tough decision for him, because while, Reinhart is a more well-rounded player, Verhaeghe is the dude, right? We talked about this. Verhaeghe is the dude. There's overtime, there's 5 minutes left. Just give the puck to Carter. He's going to score. The game's over, right? That's worth bank. And being that he's only made like 4.25, when we come to him and say 8.5, like Sam, can you do that? He might have a little bit more of a tough decision to make in terms of what another team is going to offer him, because even though I feel like Reinhart's a more well-rounded player, teams will pay for snipers. I mean, let's just look at Duclair. He hasn't gotten paid big money, but he has managed to stay in demand, even though the last couple of years has not really been anything close to what he was in his prime years with us. So Verhaeghe's not had so far, right? And if he goes through this whole season, he's not had any big injuries, right? He doesn't play an overly physical game. He should be still scoring 30, 40 goals for at least 4 or 5, maybe even 6 seasons. So, if he comes out this year and works it, because he's on a contract year, and 55, 60 goals, does what Reinhart did last year, he may not be so inclined to take 8.5 over 11, like 10, 11, right? That Jameson says the clutch game will definitely make teams back up the Brinks trucks in free agency, specifically Columbus, Chicago, Utah, San Jose, that have a ton of cap space. Yeah, that is my concern with Verhaeghe, especially if we win again, right? If he's got 2 cups and he's talking about we can give him 8, or one of these teams comes in and is like, we'll give you 11, man. We got plenty of money. That's, if you start talking about a difference of $3 million a year over 5 or 6 years, that's a lot of money. You know what I mean? And he may feel like, okay, I got my cups. I'm good. So whether or not we re-sign Ekblad is going to have an effect on that, right? Because if we just let Ekblad walk and we just fill the space with a lesser salaried guy, then we might be able to match, whatever, or come closer, right? If we say 8.5 and Columbus says, we'll give you 11, we might be able to say, we can do 9.5, Carter, if you'll stay. And then maybe that might just be enough to get it over the finish line. So on one hand, it's going to be a little bit like last year. Every time once Reinhart got past about 20 goals, we were all kind of like, stop, slow down. You're going to cost too much. But it worked out. But this year is going to be a little bit different. We'll have to see how that goes. And then Bennett, to me, it's just a matter of, as long as he stays healthy, because that's a different animal, right? He plays a very, very physical game. He obviously, him and Tkachuk benefit from each other's presence greatly. And, I don't see him as a guy that's going to be offered $9 or $10 million anywhere else. So maybe the same Sam Reinhart, $8 million. I think Bennett's been getting something close to the same, like 4.25 that Verhaeghe's been getting. But you got to look at it in the context of what we're paying other players. We just gave Lundell 5, right? It was a 4.5, 5. So, if Sam Bennett has another good year and continues to remain healthy, can you really come to him and say, well, we're going to give you less than Reinhart? I mean, maybe if he is a guy that really, really, really wants to stay with Chucky, 7. I mean, Bennett's value is not in his offensive numbers. He's not a huge points guy, right? But his value, we see it. You see Bennett's value when he's out. When Barkov is out and you slot Lundell up there, you're like, okay, it's not exactly the same player, but defensively, we're not going to start losing games because of Lundell, right? But when you put Lundell in Bennett's spot, then that's when you notice the difference, because it changes the complexion of the line completely. and Chucky's not the same. It's not necessarily bad, but it just changes things. So Bennett's value is in that physicality and the grind and how he fits with Chucky and all of that. So that'll be a little bit more of a different, it'll be a little bit more of a harder value to put out there. And last thing, obviously with Ekblad, does anybody step up this year? Is there anybody, do we see, I wish we could have kept OEL. I really wish that we could have kept OEL, because if you keep OEL, then when you just let Ekblad walk this year and you've got his replacement at least for a year or two, right? And so is there anybody on the roster that at the end of the season will be saying he can take Ekblad's spot, let Ekblad walk, right? Because it's on one hand, it's okay, well, let Ekblad walk. He's been injured, all of that. Okay, but you got to replace him, right? You got to replace him. Now, maybe there's a younger guy out there, obviously. Don't know how much money you're going to save, right? I mean, remember, Gabranson is getting paid $4 million. You know what I mean? So defenseman, Ekblad's getting 7.5. You're going to at least spend 6 of that getting somebody decent to replace them. You would assume at least 5, 6, at least. So it'd be interesting. I'll be interested to see who steps up this year and kind of makes it look like, okay, we can let this guy slide into Ekblad's slot, or do we get to the end of the season and the feeling is we either sign Ekblad to a deal or we go out and get somebody to replace him, right? I'm not sure about the righty-lefty combination, but I think Balinskis has some upside. And then I have left out Bornfoot, who I know whose name I'm still mispronouncing. It's Baron Foot. I give up. You're just going to have to forgive me on that one. I will get it eventually, but I was just learning how to figure out how to say it when the season ended, and then all hell broke loose in my life. There's also him, right? I don't want to forget him. I've left him out, but remember, he's a first-round pick. He's a first-round pick. He's from Sweden, just like Forsling. He's basically the same size. If I'm just saying, if Zito did it again, maybe that's the Ekblad replacement, right? I'd love to see that. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for today. Kyle and I got to go cook chicken, and we're going to go to the auction. And I had made a community post a couple of days ago. If any of you like sports collectibles, we came into a rather large estate lot of the old little baseball and football books and whatnot from the 70s and 80s. Those are all listed on the eBay store in case anybody's interested. Links are in the description of all the videos. That's it. Camp starts today. The guys are probably already wishing day one was over. Appreciate all the support, and I will see you all again mañana.